Hello and welcome to episode 45 of Crucible Boot Camp. I'm your host, King Koala, and today is going to be a special episode, another one of those mental game level ups where we talk about some things and some exercises that you can do in order to improve your game. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about a technique called deliberate practice, going into a little bit about the definition, what it means, what to expect out of it, and then how it plays into your warm-up routine. And so we're going to go over some things that I do to warm up and to practice very specific skills that I want to improve on in order to perform in this sense of deliberate practice. And all of this is for the purpose of self-improvement as a player and also as a human being, because some of these things you can take deliberate practice and do it not just in games but in your own life with your different skills, whether it be a musical instrument or a sport or giving speeches. Pretty much anything you can deliberately practice. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, today I'm just going to be using the face cam to explain everything. We'll go into in-game to talk about my warm-up routine, my warm-up routine later on. But first, we're going to talk about deliberate practice. So what is it? Deliberate practice is, well, everybody knows, let's start, everybody knows that improve on anything, you have to practice, right? There's always the age-old adage that you need to practice to improve. But then some people say, well, that's not exactly true, right? Just practicing something and having that repetition, doing it over and over again, doesn't necessarily help you improve because you can develop bad habits. And as soon as you start developing those bad habits, if you're practicing using those bad habits, nothing happens, right? You just get worse and worse, and you're not going to see the improvements that you want to see. So there's a paper that a man named Anders Ericsson wrote, and he's a psychologist who works out of Florida State University, and he wrote this back in 1993, but it's all over psychology. It's all over if you want to understand performance psychology or sports psychology, this is a great thing to learn. And it's this very large compendium I have here. It's about 40 pages long. It was published in a journal called Psychological Review in 1993. It's volume number 100. If you want to look it up, you can and read it for yourself. It's very interesting. But they basically came up with an idea that it isn't just about practice, but it's about how you practice. It's not just quantity, but it's quality. And the most interesting thing is that your innate skill as a person or as a player doesn't matter, right? Anyone is capable of improving to get to where they want to get to if all they do is do this thing called deliberate practice. So what is it? Well, deliberate practice basically has 4 components to it, and a rough definition would be it's a highly structured activity that you engage in with the specific goal of improving your performance. So let's break down that definition a little bit. So it's highly structured activity. That means that it's focused. It's not just, if your goal is to improve as a player in Destiny, that doesn't really give you a lot of options to practice, because then what are you going to do if you just want to improve as a player? You're going to play a lot. And that isn't necessarily going to improve things like your sniper shot. It isn't necessarily going to improve things like shooting your primary, movement, none of that. It's too general, it's too broad. So just playing the game isn't good enough. And this showed in the research. They researched experts in different fields. In the case of their experiments, he collaborated with a couple scientists out in Germany, and they did tests on experts who played the violin. There was a student and an expert, or an amateur and an expert. And they found that there were some striking similarities between all the experts. The first thing that they noticed is that it takes about 10 years worth of practice to get to an expert level. At least 10 years. But if as an amateur, the amateurs could have been playing for 10 years and they wouldn't be nearly as good as the experts that were playing for 10 years. And so they dove into this. Well, why is it that they spent the same amount of time practicing, but one of them was vastly superior than the other? And they discovered that it was how they were practicing that got them to that point. So this idea of having highly structured activity is something that you see in all fields, and this is sort of taken for granted a lot of the time. And if in music, a good example of deliberate practice is scales. So you go from an octave scale, so you go from a C up one octave to another C, and you play all the notes in between, and you just practice hitting every single note, having a clean sound, things like that. And that's what you focus on. You just do that over and over and over again. And so they found that the amateurs wouldn't necessarily do their scales, right? Amateurs would just be playing. They'd just be practicing. They pick a song, they try to learn it. Experts would play their scales, and they get their scales down perfectly. And then they move on to another concept where maybe they wanted to do like a trill where you go down 3 notes or you go up 3 notes. And then their deliberate practice would be they would just practice doing those 3 notes until they could move it perfectly at different beats, at different tones, different intervals between all of those notes. So they pinpointed one small thing that they wanted to work on, and they worked on it until they got perfect, or as perfect as possible as they could have gotten. And then they moved on to something else. But they would always return to it. You return to those things that you deliberately practice because you want to practice all the time. And you need to not forget those fundamentals. And you see in sports, it's similar to shooting free throws. Playing basketball isn't good enough. Anyone can go and play a pickup game and be awful. But if you're just sitting for 15, 20 minutes a day practicing your free throws, once you get into that game, that practice is going to give you that confidence and give you the ability to just hit shots from that free throw line or from around that arc. So the second half of this definition is with the specific goal of improving performance. So you can't just go into it thinking, I need to improve my primary shot, or I need to practice, so I'm going to go shoot my primary a bunch. You have to have purpose for what you're doing. There needs to be something that you're getting to at the end of it all. So if you want to practice your primary shot, and I'm going to tell myself, all right, I need to work on my primary shot, so all I'm going to do, so again, highly structured, all I'm going to do is go into a rumble match, and I'm only going to use my primary. I'm never going to switch to another weapon. I'm going to do my best not to use any abilities, or grenades, or melee, or super, or anything like that. Every engagement I'm going to get into, I'm going to use my primary. And I'm just going to work on hitting shots. And you can take that even a step further. You can go even deeper. Maybe that's too broad for you. Maybe just working on your on engagements is too broad. Maybe you actually need to have the gun skill to back that up. Maybe you just need to be able to hit your shots, period. So then you'll go into something like patrol. And you'll take your time pacing your shots. Let's say we're using a hand cannon. We're going to go into patrol, and we're going to work on, okay, I want to hit a headshot. So you take as much time as you want, and you hit that headshot. And you deliberately practice hitting that headshot over and over again. And then you start to ramp it up, start to move faster, start to hit that headshot faster, start to add follow-up shots into it. Maybe you want to practice the optimal time to kill for your hand cannon. And that's, let's say we're using an IS Luna, so that's 1 headshot and 2 body shots. So you go into patrol, you find, let's say, a knight, and you headshot him once. That obviously doesn't kill him, and then you'd go for 2 follow-up body shots. And you just practice that. Again, slow at first, and then ramp into it. And so this highly structured thing doesn't necessarily need to take a lot of time, right? Even though eventually you want to get to that expert level of you've practiced for 10 years, but you've spent that 10 years working on little things that folded into the big picture over working on the big picture and wondering why you're not improving. Because just running your head against a wall doesn't mean you're eventually going to run through it. Sometimes it means you're going to fall over unconscious. If you chip away at it, if you go and you get a hammer and chisel and you chip away at it one corner at a time, eventually you'll be able to get through that entire wall. Now, it might take you a very long time, but you will make very clear progress, right? And you'll be able to look back when you started, especially if you take video of what you do. You'll be able to look back when you started and see. And this is what I see when I review old gameplay, like real old gameplay that I have. I'll go back and I'll look at something, as little as 3 months ago, and I'll be able to pinpoint things that I've solved or I've worked on, and maybe I don't make the same mistakes as I used to, or that the frequency of those mistakes has drastically gone down because I've deliberately practiced different concepts in order to stop me from having those bad habits, from making those poor decisions, and maybe putting myself in a better position, or I'm hitting more shots, or I'm moving a little bit better. Everything seems to be going smoother or faster, and you're going to notice it over those long periods of time. Deliberate practice isn't something that you can just pick up today and then tomorrow you're going to go flawless, right? That's not going to happen. That's not realistic at all. What is realistic is if you continue to practice whatever you need to work on, identifying it, and then backing up and looking back and saying, hey, I remember practicing these 3 things. And then you're going to look back and say, I couldn't go flawless back then. But now I went from maybe going from, maybe 3 wins on a card to consistently 7 wins. Or maybe now you can consistently go flawless, or you can consistently be in contention for going flawless. There are a lot of people out there that have, are forever 8-1 or whatever they want to say. Like that, that happens to be another hurdle you need to get over. But that's a huge difference from when you could barely, earn that first win to get those boons on your card, make them worth it. So with deliberate practice, there's basically 4 essential components for deliberate practice. So we're going to go over those right now. I have a little whiteboard here. So these are the 4 essential components that you need for deliberate practice. So, as you can see of my poorly drawn person lifting weights. So the first component to creating any kind of deliberate practice is motivation and effort. So you have to be motivated to use the deliberate practice, and you have to exert effort in order to improve your performance. You can't just skate through deliberate practice. This is very, very difficult. And you have to be able to push yourself, because the entire idea of improving is that you aren't where you want to be at, right? Where you are today isn't necessarily where you want to be at tomorrow. And that means you're going to have to be uncomfortable in order to get to a place where you have no idea where you've been before. Like, you've never been there before, so you don't know what it's like. That's uncomfortable. So you have to put in effort, because if you don't put in effort, you're not going to get yourself out of your comfort zone and get yourself into a position where you can take in this practice and actually have it cause you to improve. And you have to be motivated. You can't go into deliberate practice half-assing it. And that goes hand in hand with effort. If you start half-assing it, then eventually you're not going to think it works for you, or you're not going to see improvements at all because maybe you're developing bad habits or things like that. So that's the first component of deliberate practice. So you have to be motivated, and you have to put in effort, a lot of effort. The second thing is you need to build off prior knowledge. So what does that mean, building off prior knowledge? Well, when you develop your own deliberate practice, and we're going to go into this from the example of a warm-up routine, so they're going to vary person to person. My warm-up routine is going to be very different from a lot of players. You can copy what I do, but it might not necessarily work for you because of this thing down here. You don't want to just jump into something completely inexperienced. So I'm a Titan, and if you're a Titan too, then one of the things you need to learn is how to Titan skate. But you don't just jump into skating right away if you don't know how to jump first. So the first thing you need to make sure for any kind of deliberate practice is you have the fundamentals down. And if the fundamental is jumping, then you just need to practice jumping deliberately first. And then once you get jumping down, that's when you'll have a set of deliberate practice for something like skating. So everything you do will build off of each other. Once you get skating down, then another thing for deliberate practice is practicing specific skating routes. You shouldn't practice skating routes until you have the step before it done, and that would be just general skating. You're comfortable skating. Now you push into, well, how do I put that into a game? The third thing you want is immediate feedback. So every single aspect of deliberate practice needs to have an element of immediate feedback to it. So you should immediately know when you're doing something right and when you're doing something wrong. So let's go back to the example of using your primary and getting your primary shot down. So if your deliberate practice is hitting headshots, then your immediate feedback is you missed a headshot, right? And video games are great at giving you immediate feedback. They're one of the best tools to give immediate feedback because you have things like deaths, you have things like, well, in this case, you're firing a gun and it misses, obviously, or there's little damage counters that actually pop up and show you. And in this case, you have yellow damage over white damage. So white damage would be a body shot, yellow damage would be a headshot. So you know immediately if you miss that headshot. That yellow number doesn't pop up. So that sense of immediate feedback gives you the ability to gauge your process. If you don't have that immediate feedback, it's really difficult to tell if you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. So whenever you develop your warm-up routine or your things that you're going to deliberately practice, you have to make sure you can get immediate feedback. And sometimes that means you actually have someone sitting behind you saying you did something wrong, or hey, you did it wrong, do it again. You did it wrong, you do it again. Sometimes it means you have something like, if you're hitting a skating route, maybe there's a certain time you want to hit, so you have a stopwatch next to you, so you know if you're too fast or too slow or just right. The final step, or the final essential component of deliberate practice down here is number 4, is repetition. So you have to repeatedly perform the same or similar tasks in order to improve. So deliberate practice is not a one-time only thing. If you practice your primary shot and you get those headshots, just because you get it down doesn't mean you should stop practicing your headshots, because you can only get better at it. No one has perfect accuracy. No one has a perfect shot. Some people are close, but there are a lot of elements, especially in this game, that come into play that can stop you from having that sense of perfection. Elements like on hand cannons you have bloom. Other players are firing on you. You're out also moving in two axes. You're moving forward and back and also up and down. Or I guess that's 3 axes. In addition, you're also subject to game mechanics like flinch. Like, are you being shot behind or ahead? Or from the side? Are you actually in the air when you're firing? So is there that sense of inaccuracy? Like, constantly repeating what you're doing over and over again, or going back to building off prior knowledge. If you're repeating your primary shot, but you're building off the idea that I can hit headshots now, let's try to hit headshots in the air. Or I can hit body shots now, let's try to hit body shots in the air. Or let's try to slide around a corner and fire. It's similar to what you were doing before, but you're building off prior knowledge, you're putting in that more effort, and you still have that sense of immediate feedback for that deliberate practice. So, I'm going to put this back here. Stop freaking out my dog. Okay. So what does this mean for you as a player? Well, the first thing that one of the important things that Anders Ericsson discovered as well is that no matter what your innate talents are, and I talked about this a little bit at the very beginning, but no matter what your innate talents are, deliberate practice works for everyone. So your natural ability, you can't use it as an excuse, because there are no limits in a video game, or very little physical limits in a video game. Now, if you have like no hands, then obviously that's a very real physical limit, and maybe you have to use your feet, or maybe you have to use your mouth. Like that's an obvious physical limit. But if you have all your hands and feet, you have all your toes, and you can naturally move your fingers at a reasonable reaction rate, and you don't have some sort of debilitating disease, then you don't have an excuse. So, and the average human reaction time, most people are going to, it's the sense of it being average is most people have an average human reaction time. I don't have a reaction time that's any better than most. It's average. It's woefully average. So I don't have because I'm just as average as ever, because I'm just like everyone else. I can't use my reaction time as an excuse. Like, oh, they're kids; they have better reaction time than me. No, they probably have the same reaction time as me, but they're just doing something different. Maybe they have a better shot because they practice it more, but that doesn't mean I can't practice to catch up to them. Second is you have to understand that it's not how much you practice, it's how you practice that matters. So again, quality over quantity. Deliberate practice, especially in the sense of a warm-up routine, doesn't have to take very long. 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, that's it. And then you can go and play 3 hours in the game. But having that warm-up routine where you're specifically practicing something, that's going to help you a lot more than just zoning out, turning your mind off, and playing for 3 hours. Spending that 15 minutes laser focused on your shot, and then going back to that's gonna give you steps up and up, as opposed to this idea where you're kind of wavering. Maybe some days you have a good day, maybe some days you have a bad day. Deliberate practice, you don't have bad days, because you're putting in that effort, and you're only doing it when you're motivated, and you're putting your mind in a good sense that you want to improve, right? You have the mindset going into it that you're gonna get better. Just keeping in mind that, hey, this is gonna take a long time. Third thing is your perseverance is what determines how good you can get. Again, the number one thing was motivation. As soon as you lose that motivation, as soon as you stop doing whatever you're doing, that's your limit, right? You don't want to go any further because you don't want to put in that effort to go any further. You stop your own improvement. You're your own roadblock. It takes a lot longer than a few weeks, a few months, a few days to get to your actual mental and physical limits. It takes years. It could take decades. And maybe you never peak, right? And some things, an example would be mentally, maybe you look at games like Go, games like chess, sports like fencing. In fencing, there's an obvious physical limit as far as your speed, but as you get older, the mental game of fencing, which a lot of people undervalue, can keep you just as relevant and just as good as someone at an average level or someone at a below average level. And just because you can't move as fast as them doesn't mean you can't outplay them. Go and chess are perfect examples of this. Grandmasters aren't just very young children. Some of them are very old men and women, in their 60s and 70s. And they retained this mental aptitude throughout their whole life. So, and then because they kept practicing and kept doing it over and over again, and they never let up, right? Your limits are where you stop. It's where you just don't bother to practice anymore. And finally, the only constraint you have on your expertise, on your ability to get to that expert level from wherever you are now, is your motivation. So, no matter how you do it, you have to find the way to keep that motivation up. And that's going to differ from people to people. Like for me, I tend to stay a lot more motivated when I have people encouraging me. So I try to surround myself by people that tell me I'm doing a good job, that lift me up, that give me positive experiences. I'm not necessarily looking for sycophants, right? I don't want someone to just kiss my butt all the time. But it's motivating to have someone that either I admire or that I trust telling me that I am doing a good job and reinforcing that, hey, I can see you improving, or I can see how hard you're trying, and keep at it. Little things like that go a long way. Since I started doing this, sometimes I'll just get random messages joining games like, hey, I like your videos, thanks for doing them. That's like one sentence that someone spent 30 seconds out of their day sending me. But getting that message from me, you might have spent 30 seconds sending that to me or writing that message out to me. But when I get that message gets me through a day. It gets me through a week. It can get me through a rough month. Just thinking about how many people have my back and appreciate what I'm doing. So, and that's motivating to me. That's not necessarily going to work for everyone. But for me, that's huge. So find your motivation and hold on to it and use it to learn and to grow and to, you know, continue to get better, both as a person and as a player. So let's go ahead and talk about my warm-up routine. So we talked a lot about kind of the overall idea of deliberate practice. So let's actually put it into practice with a warm-up routine. So everyone should have a warm-up routine. This can vary based on what you want to warm up on or what it is that you want to practice. But for the most part, your warm-up routine should be relatively short. Just like a normal warm-up for sport, when you're warming up to work out, when you're, you know, going for a run, lifting weights, things like that. Warm-up routines don't last as long as the actual exercise. But if you don't do them, there are very real consequences to skipping it, right? If you don't warm up and then you go and lift weights cold, you could potentially start tearing your muscles. You could develop really bad form because the elasticity of your muscles isn't there. There are a lot of bad things that happen when you don't warm up. So the same thing goes for a game and improving at a game, because a game is primarily mental and your mind needs to warm up as well. Right? If you're not in the right mindset, if you're not in you don't have the right sense of what's going on, or you're not focused, then you're not gonna be conducive to deliberate practice when you do get into it. And you can also use your warm up as deliberate practice. So everyone's dead right now, but basically, there are 3 different things that I practice in my warm up. So I practice gun skill. It's the first one. The second one is ability usage. So that's supers, grenades, melees. Melees is a little tricky, and I'll explain that later. And movement, right? So as a Titan, let's start with movement, since that's going to be specific to me. So how I warm up my movement for deliberate practice is, let's go through I guess a chain of deliberate practice. So first, let's talk about jumping. So a simple double tap, right? That's gonna jump you or give you a burst. Right? So this is round 1. To deliberately practice your double jump, all you want to do is you want to go around and you want to look at an object. Let's say this rock in front of me, and I'm gonna jump on top of it, and I'm gonna try to land in the center here. So all I'm gonna do is focus on different things and try to jump to them. This is kind of step 1 for learning how to jump, and you can do this on any class, right? So this is really boring, right? And most deliberate practice is very, very boring. But this is integral to me improving in any map or in anything. Just my general movement, right? See, I made a mistake there, so I'm just going to go back, start over again. Okay, so this is level 1. So level 2 is the Titan skate. So the Titan skate, and I don't think I've shown this in a video before, but Titan skate is basically... you're going to do a short hop in the air, and as you're falling down, so after the apex of your jump, you're going to be parallel to the ground, and you're going to hit the jump button 7 times. So 1, and then 6 in a row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're going to drop back down. So that's a Titan skate. It's very quick. And that's all you want to practice, right? You just want to practice initially just hitting that button as quickly as you possibly can. And you're just going to start dropping down. So then you want to build off of that. So now I have the knowledge that, I can Titan skate normally. Then you want to start chaining. So we're building off that knowledge, right? We're building off the initial skate. And now we're adding another skate. And now, hey, I have confidence that I can add all these skates. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start skating over and over again. And so now that I've established that I can skate, all I'm doing is I'm going to look back and forth. But I'm still going to try to skate in the same direction. So once I establish I can skate straight forward, I'm going to start side skating. So there are no monsters on the field here, but if there were, another thing you can add as you get comfortable with that is start firing on the fallen that are here. Or if you're on a different patrol, you can start firing on other, whatever is around. But now I'm starting to combine gun skill and movement. All right, so the final thing is, let's say, so the way I get immediate feedback for Titan skating is the goal of Titan skating is to go at maximum speed. So the immediate feedback you have here is when you go at maximum speed, when you hit a wall, you take damage. As you can see, there's either going to be a damage modifier or a damage indicator with the little red arrow. You're going to hear thunk. And sometimes you'll take damage. Sometimes you'll take a lot of damage, sometimes you'll take a little damage. It depends on kind of a couple things like. But you can see I took damage there. So for my Titan skate, and you see the damage indicator there, the Titan skate, as long as I'm hitting that wall at the end of my skate and I'm taking that damage, that's the immediate feedback I need. If I don't take damage like there when I hit it, I'm not going fast enough. So my timing might be off. My timing of short hopping off the ground might be off. My timing of actually hitting the button fast enough might be off. So you just do it until you kind of feel your way through it. And also you can get a partner to kind of like someone like me to kind of give you pointers on what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right. Kind of show you my hands as I Titan skate. So I use bumper jumper. As you can see, it's just a normal controller. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to jump and I'm just going to spam the button, right? That's all you have to do to Titan skate. And you can see there's a little gap between when I hit the last button. So I've skated long enough that I actually know how many times I hit the button. So I can stop pushing the button. You don't have to be pushing the button the entire time, right? Because you're wasting energy, you're wasting time, because you can only hit that button 7 total times. 1 to hop off the ground, and then 6 to burst, because you're gonna burst and then turn it off, burst, turn it off, burst, turn it off, and then you're out of jumps. That's it. That's how many jumps you get, is those 3 bursts. So that's why there's a delay as I'm skating. Now, if you're someone that doesn't sweat or someone that likes using exotics, I use Twilight Garrison, and the interesting thing about Twilight Garrison is when you garrison forward, you come out of it at max speed. You can see there, I took quite a chunk of damage, because I am going at maximum speed. So if I'm deliberately practicing with Twilight Garrison, I'm going to start every skate with the Garrison and skate forward. And I know that after 2 full skate rotations, so 1, 2, I can Garrison again. So I can actually use that to move around the map. So this is something that I'll do during my warm-up. Once I get my skating down, I'll start adding in Twilight Garrison to it to move around the map. Okay, so now let's talk about gun skill, what you'll do for gun skill. You can see I have some friends around me now. We're going to go find some Fallen. So I almost exclusively use the last word. I do exclusively use hand cannons and pulse rifles. So both of those are weapons that you want to be super accurate with. So what I want to do is, like we talked about earlier, practice headshots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take as much time as I need to, and I'm just going to hit a headshot. Right? I'm not going to try to go move fast, try to be fancy about it. I'm just going to slowly line up a headshot, confirm that it's there, and then pull the trigger. And I'm going to do this all on the ground, and all I'm trying to get here is accuracy, right? All I want is accuracy. I don't want speed, I want accuracy. And this is how you should start learning how to use your gun, is accuracy first and then speed. So you can see, I haven't missed a single headshot yet on the things that I can get headshots on. This is our goal. Once you get that down, again, build off that prior knowledge. Okay, I can hit headshots. Now you want to start doing it faster. How can you snap in and get a headshot? Right? Start doing it faster. Maybe you want to add slides to it. That one wasn't. But again, now I got that immediate feedback that I did it wrong. So what did I do there? Maybe I pulled the trigger too soon. Maybe I didn't pre-aim well enough. This is why it's important to record your gameplay, because you can go back and you try to identify what you're doing wrong or where your aim is going wrong. So let's talk about snipers. I'm a sniper now. How do I warm up with a sniper? Well, first I'll do the same thing. I'll line up these slow headshots. I'll confirm that I'm going to hit it, and then I'll pull the trigger. But what do I do when I really want to get in the mood for trials, or when I want to get in the mood to sweat as a sniper? Well, some things that you need to know how to do are quickscope. So I'm going to confirm that my reticle's over my target with that little... You can see that their health pops up. That means my reticle's on the target. And then I can scope in once that health shows up. And you can see I got the red damage indicator on it. So I'm going to just scope in and take a shot real quick. So I'm going to take a long time making sure that health bar shows up on these monsters initially. Right? So I see... Okay, the health's up. And I miss. I got it that time. So that's all you're going to do. You're just going to wait and you're going to scope in. Wait. Okay, it's out there. Scope in. This is how you practice quick scoping. All right, let's take it a step further. Let's say this is especially good for covering orbs in trials, or doing things like pushing with a sniper against things like shotgunners or people that are weak around corners. You want to no-scope them. So same concept. We're building off that quick scope idea where when we mouse over the target as their health showing. But now you want to get in close enough that you can no-scope them, right? Close enough where, because your reticle's on target, when you're really close, sniper rifles have a huge accuracy cone. But when you're really close, the accuracy cone doesn't really matter. So you basically use it as a pseudo shotgun. So this is how you would practice no-scoping. Again, with the sense of deliberate practice. I'm going to do this just over and over again, trying to make sure he's on there, slide into him, pull the trigger. Alright, it's on there, pull the trigger. It's very simple. Like, nothing about this is necessarily complicated, but it is very boring. But this is how you get better at it. Now, how do you... I'm picking Fallen because they're close to the same size as Guardians. But if you have friends that you want to go into a private match with, then you can practice on them as well. And you can even practice doing things like killing people out of reses, things like that. So we covered gun skill, covered a little bit of movement. We even added in a little bit of... during our skate, I told you, we were going to drive by. So let's talk about abilities. Final thing. How do I practice abilities? Well, I go into a private match, either by myself or with a partner. Put it on a Mayhem. And I pick... Normally I do this on Burning Shrine, and I'll show you why. Set it for 30 minutes. Maybe I want to practice, for 30 minutes. Maybe I want 10 minutes. This time limit thing is great for deliberate practice, because you can set how long you want to do it. Maybe you only want a quick 5-minute practice. You can do that. And there's a very obvious time when you stop. So we're going to go into Burning Shrine, and we're going to talk for just a second on using your abilities. Specifically, your super and your grenade. Your melee, you basically, for practicing melees, you have to have someone else there because you need to know the ranges. So if you want to practice your melees, what you want to do is first, the level 1 is just practicing hitting it. This is something that I'm still bad at Titan, and I probably should spend a lot more time practicing my melee because I T-Rex a lot. But you'll take a partner and you'll just stand still. Level 1 is just standing still, walk up to your target and hit them, right? Let's say my target's on special box. I'm just going to walk up to them and I'm going to swing it when I think I'm in range. And then you're going to wait for it to recharge, and then you're going to do that again. All right. Level 2 would be something like you jump into the air and you swing. And then level 3 is something like you want to start combining it with your gun skill. Level 3 is almost always combining things into your gun skill. So the movement, combine it with your gun skill. Abilities, combine it with your gun skill. So in the case of a melee, Titan melee, I need to hit one body shot with my hand cannon, and then it's going to kill. Or if it's uncharged, I need to hit 2 body shots, and then it's going to kill. Or a single headshot, and then it's going to kill. But I brought you here specifically into Burning Shrine to practice throwing grenades and then using your super. So if you're unfamiliar with Death from Above, it's Mayhem. So I'll practice hitting a certain spot. So what I'll do is I'll pick a spot, and then I'll pick another spot, say here, and then I'll just practice hitting that spot over and over again. But while that's charging, I'm going to show you how I practice my grenades. Now this is, I have 3 spots on Burning Shrine that I do to practice my grenades, and they ramp up in difficulty. So this is level 1. So what I want to do is practice throwing my... Oh, I guess let's back up. Let's talk about grenades first. The first thing you want to do is pick a grenade you want to practice. Let's say we're going to use lightning grenade this time. Level 1 for deliberate practice is just hitting a spot to cover an area, so specifically with lightning grenades. So let's say I want to cover B, pushing out. So I'm going to try to hit here. Alright, so that didn't quite work. So I'm going to try to throw it there instead. So that's going to cover B, right? Another spot you could throw it is right over here. That's going to cover B. You can try to hit this wall here. That's going to cover B. So this is one of those 5-minute things where you'll just spend 5 minutes on a map. Let's say it's a trials map, and you'll just practice throwing your lightning grenades. For me, I'm pretty comfortable hitting those grenades that I'm throwing at high accuracy. What I'm not comfortable with is drive-by grenades. So what I'll do instead is I'll try to throw grenades specifically at the special box back there. So I'm going to practice just like that, throwing my lightning grenade so it points out. And this is one thing that you can do to practice on Titan, is drive-by skating. And you can do this on pretty much any class. You just can't skate by. Like a warlock, you could floof over the top, throw your grenade. It's a little bit easier. As a hunter, maybe you shade step out, throw your grenade, and go into cover. But this is level 1 for me. This is the easiest spot for me to throw grenades. It's right here. And that one I messed up my skate. And again, I had immediate feedback from when I messed up because I didn't skate all the way across. And you can even start going back a little bit further. Make it a little bit easier on yourself. Alright, so that's the first level of difficulty for throwing my grenade on this spot. Once I'm kind of comfortable there, I'll start trying to go into this spot here. My goal is to hit this back wall. Rather large, right? Well, now I need to combine skating with that. So at first, I'm just throwing my grenade from here so I can get comfortable with it. Now to ramp up, now that I'm comfortable with that, I'm going to try to skate across. I didn't even hit my grenade that time, but I'm going to try to skate across from here. And so I messed up, right? I hit the wall, so I need to go back. Again, have immediate feedback. Messed up there. So we'll just practice this, you know. And that's what I wanted to do, right? And I know I hit it. It's back there. Would have killed someone back there. And I'm in undercover. So this is a sort of the intermediate level of difficulty for practicing this part of grenades. And you can always go back and check, because if I don't hit that spot, I'm going to see my lightning grenade pointed straight up. Or not quite there. Alright, so that's the intermediate spot. Once I'm comfortable there, again, continuing to practice my grenades, this is the final spot. Where do I want my grenade? I want it to go here. That's where I want it to go. Now, because you throw your grenade with your left hand on your Guardian, this skate here is a little bit more difficult than this direction here. Oh, didn't throw my grenade. So again, this spot is really difficult to hit, right? With any sort of accuracy. So that one went too far, right? So you, again, immediate feedback. And I'm actually trying to do this. And I can even add, like I'm doing now, getting rid of grenades, which is something that you should probably get used to. See, that was a good one. It's right where I want it to go. So this is this is a great example of deliberate practice and a great way to warm up. Because if this was a trials map, if I can do this kind of maneuver reliably, I could potentially get a kill, because I'm going to hit that lightning grenade. Where are they going to go? They're going to go across bridge. What am I going to be? Right there to kill them as they go across the bridge. This is the kind of play that will separate you from, you know, this is the kind of play that separates you from 8 wins and going flawless. If you can pull this off on that last spot, like, people are not going to know what's going on. Maybe it works once, but that one time could be enough. Once you get that high, you tend to snowball very easily in those matches where you play with high skill players. So with gun skill, you know, maybe I want to fire and try to hit the same shot. That's a bad spot because bullets. I want to try to hit the same spot over and over again. So I'll shoot, you see the bullet hole, and I'll try to recreate where it is. And then I'll start firing faster, trying to hit the same spot, and then I'll start moving backwards a little bit. I don't even need targets to hit here. I can just fire at head level and just slowly back up and try to hit the same spot, right? And so eventually my aim gets pretty bad. But that's just something you have to practice. And finally, Titan skating. So once you kind of go on your patrols and you're comfortable with skating in a PvE environment, in the open, what I'll start doing is doing what I call, what are commonly known as Titan routes. So on trials specifically, if you spawn out here, it's possible for you, if you're a shotgunner, to get, oh, I messed that one up, but you can get all the way to C flag in the back with your shotgun out, ready to fire as the person rounds the corner, if you angle it properly. Yep. And you're going to shotgun someone right there, basically, as you get there. So this is one opportunity for me to practice. Another good route to have in your back pocket as a Titan is going onto Rusted Lands and skating through Suicide, from the B point through towards the A Broken Pillar and the A Special. And so my deliberate practice is I'm going to try to hit this spot, right? And the immediate feedback is maybe you time it, right? Maybe I have 5 seconds to get there, excuse me. So I'm just going to practice trying to get there in 5 seconds. If I do it wrong, I have the immediate feedback where, I messed up. So then you just reset. And you time yourself again and again and again. So, kind of recap my warm-up routine. I always start off slow and then ramp into something fast. I try to make it short, no more than 20 minutes for the most part, for a warm-up. If I want to deliberately practice something, that's when I'll spend, hours doing the same thing over and over again. And yes, I have sat here and shot at a wall trying to recreate the same spot on the wall for hours. Normally not more than in hour intervals, and then I'll probably not play the game for the rest of the day if I'm spending an hour shooting at a wall. But that's just something that you have to practice if you're going to get better. Because specifically, I want to be accurate. If I can hit the same shot over and over again, I can hit multiple headshots. If I can hit multiple headshots, I can get optimal time to kill and last word. So again, I have a goal in mind when I'm doing this, and I'm doing it over and over and over again. This isn't something that I just did once and didn't do again. I'll just do it over and over and over again. Because I can never be perfect. No one's perfect. But I can damn sure try to be. So, there will be links to Mr. Anders Ericsson's paper, if you want to look at that, for deliberate practice. I highly recommend you go read it. I basically skimmed the surface on it. The guy has been studying deliberate practice for performance psychology for, I don't even know how long, 30, 40 years now. So he's very much an expert on the subject, and the paper is really good. It's pretty dense, but take your time, get a highlighter, read through it on your own, and it's well worth understanding the concept, especially if you want to get better at anything, not just this game. But thank you guys for watching. If you want to support the stream, support the show, you can always become a Patreon backer. I really appreciate that. All that money goes straight into the wedding fund, so Koalet also appreciates that. Yeah. I've been your host, King Koala. This has been Crucible Bootcamp. As always, it's been a pleasure. Class is dismissed. I'll see you guys next time.